Hello, people. Let's see now. Audio seems to work. Picture is on. Yep, seems we're online. And from my end, everything looks good. I hope at your end ends also. First of all, I want to thank Antti Lehikoinen for the feedback and tips regarding the audio quality of these streams. Antti had noticed that the audio volume, the level was quite a bit lower than it ideally should be on YouTube videos, and he also taught me how I can test the level on YouTube and and how I could test and see the effects of whatever adjustments I was doing, and in attempt to try to improve the situation. And I ended up spending some money to a hardwired compressor unit, and now, well, you tell me, but the sound of these streams should be better than ever before. So thank you, Antti, much appreciated. I hope it's working good. Right, so in the past couple of weeks, we added, with Emma, we added a couple of videos to our Zen and the Art of Guitar Maintenance series, both episodes about adjusting the truss rod of your guitar. First one was the instructions for adjusting a vintage Fender style truss rod, and the second one basically any guitar that has an access to the adjusting nut without loosening strings and or removing the neck of the guitar. And those videos have been very well received. Thank you so much. They've also generated more questions, which will be partly addressed today. Some of it we'll look into in a future Zen episode or two. We'll see. So today I will be answering to as many of your questions as I possibly can. And we'll begin with a few truss rod related questions and comments I received during the past weeks. Okay, I can see here Greg, Stephen, BM, Antti. Cool. Welcome. So, yeah, a few truss rod related questions. First of all, Toby Mandias asked a while back if I could share any tips on how to adjust a truss rod located at the bottom end of the neck, which he felt is always a pain in the butt to get right. Well, that video was published 2 weeks ago, so a question that was long overdue has been finally answered. So you'll just find it one of the Zen videos, one of the recent Zen videos. It's there. There's the better answer I could ever give you here. Gilles pointed out in his comment the importance of when adjusting the truss rod of the guitar, holding the guitar in playing position when checking the relief of the neck. And he was referring to the fact that when the guitar is laying flat on a bench, the result won't be exactly the same due to gravity. And Gilles is absolutely correct in his comment. Thank you, much appreciated. As those of you who watched my truss rod videos notice, I was always holding the guitar in playing position on my lap when checking the relief, but I didn't emphasize the importance of doing it this way. Sorry about that. No matter how carefully I try to plan the videos, a detail or two always seems to slip by. So, oh well. Happy to have you guys help me with this. So all good. Antti L asked, some people say that you shouldn't adjust the truss rod too much at once because the neck takes some time to adjust. Is this true? Well, this also I discussed about on my last week's Zen video, but yeah, some necks do take more time to react to the adjustment. This means that if you now say tighten the rod, say half a turn, and after the adjustment the guitar feels great, but after a few days might feel like the adjustment went kind of overboard too much, and then you might need to tweak it back a bit. So the answer, or to answer to your question, the better you learn to know your instrument, the easier the truss rod adjustment becomes. With a certain guitar, you may learn, okay, this one I'll adjust just a tiny bit because in a week it has kind of reacted more to my little adjustment, whereas with another guitar, the effect of the adjustment could be immediate, which is often is. So yeah, guitars differ from one from each other, different pieces of wood, different types of truss rods, etc. Yeah. And okay, well, this one was an excellent one. Sam Eric Edge asked, what exactly is it that makes truss rod adjustments necessary? What is happening to the guitar? And this is an excellent question, and overlooked by me, as I've been adjusting Nexo guitars for so long, so much that I just take it for granted that everybody knows. Well, obviously, not everybody knows. But now, if you share this video to all the human beings, everybody will know, well, at least on this planet, in just a second. So, truss rod, it is a great invention in a guitar made out of wood, because wood by nature is a living material. Wooden constructions, like any wooden construction, be it a house, a boat, or a guitar, it reacts to changes in the humidity and temperature of the space where the guitar is kept in. So, in other words, if you live in a country where the winter is clearly colder than the summer, then it is likely that you'll have some kind of heating system in your house, and during the heating season, the indoor air tends to be drier than when there's no heating needed. Also, vice versa, like if your house has air conditioning installed to cool down the air during summer, well, that also tends to dry the air. So the air humidity changes from season to another, and wood, as a natural breathing material, reacts to that. How? Well, in a very humid climate, a wooden construction, it sucks in moisture in an attempt to adapt, to reach an equilibrium with its surroundings. And then when the air gets drier, wooden constructions, they would release moisture away, again in an attempt to reach an equilibrium with the surroundings. So different species of wood react differently to their surrounding humidity. And it's fair to say that a newly built wooden construction tends to react much more severely to these changes than an older construction that has been seasoned for many years. Okay, so then the guitar neck, well, it's not any different. It also sucks and releases moisture, breathes in, breathes out. Humidity, along with the seasonal changes, and when the guitar neck is drier, typically in the winter, it is measurably less rigid than it would be during a more humid season. You can even measure the distance, the difference. Do I have my calipers here? I don't seem to have my calipers here. Well, you can really measure the difference, the neck width with precise calipers, and you notice that in the dry season, the neck measures slightly slimmer than in the humid season. So, in other words, though, in the winter, the guitar neck gives in more to the pull of the strings, resulting that the relief of the neck is bigger, and the strings are higher from the fretboard. So, with truss rod, you can introduce a counterforce to the strings, making the neck more rigid by tightening the rod. And if you don't adjust it, well, the strings will just be a bit higher in the winter. Until next spring, summer, you'll notice that they'll lower again as the neck has become more humid, more rigid, resisting the strings pull more, having sucked in more moisture, along with the changing season. So I hope this answered your question, Sam Eric Edge. Now you know what the truss rod is for and what is happening to the guitar when and why you need to adjust it. So I have also received a few private messages after my truss rod videos from some of my colleagues who seem to be somewhat concerned of the fact that I share this inside information with you. Well, I think that every guitar player would benefit of learning to understand the basic mechanisms of their guitars. Like it makes your life easier as a player to understand that the truss rod adjustment is the very core of your, what your guitar playability is. That the playability remains stable, the same from day to day, to month to month, season to season, year to year. So if you should learn to do one adjustment, one and only adjustment to your own guitars on behalf of changing strings, then it would be this, the truss rod adjustment. So yeah, I don't think sharing this piece of information is stealing bread from any guitar making or repairing professionals' tables. I mean, I always try to be super clear about, about what I feel are the sensible boundaries of what every player should know about, and what is the limit, where to draw the line. So when to take the guitar to a pro. Okay, it's totally different if you're a hobby guitar builder or like to know about guitar repair in more depth and detail, but if you are one of these people, hobby builders, hobby repairs guys, remember that you're among a minority. You belong to the minority. The majority of guitar players are not interested in repairing guitars, but playing guitar. I mean, ideally you just go ahead and play and there will never be a problem. But that is a rare situation with a musical instrument, most often made out of wood. So yeah, I feel I'm doing the right thing, sharing this information. What do you think? Am I revealing stuff that should be kept to ourselves, the guitar making and repairing professionals? What do you think? Let me know. There is another point of view, of course. I mean, related to the same thing that I probably haven't emphasized enough, though. I got really great feedback from one of my early mentors. Don't know if he knows he's my early mentor or not, though. But anyways, Juha Rislaki, a Finnish legendary guitar repair specialist. Juha, you're the main reason why we shape our fret ends like we do, those dome-shaped fret ends that you don't see so often. I saw your work when studying guitar making, and yeah, so thank you, Juha Rislaki, for sharing your wisdom then back in the day to us eager novice wannabe guitar makers. So yeah, Juha Rislaki is a renowned and highly respected guitar repair specialist in Finland. These days already retired, but anyways, he pointed out basically that with sharing information about adjusting the truss rod, there comes also a responsibility. Because there are all kinds of scenarios where the truss rod doesn't quite work as it's supposed to work. Such as old Rickenbacker guitars, they have very special truss rod construction, often causing a bit of a headache. Or basically in any guitar, if the truss rod hasn't been adjusted in a long time, it might be stuck. Or even in a new guitar, it might be stuck. So there is a risk that you break something if you go by force and you don't know what you're doing. So I did mention this briefly in one of my truss rod videos, but as said, I have to admit, I don't think I emphasized it enough. So thank you, Juha Rislaki, for pointing this out in your extremely caring, polite, and diplomatic way. A true gentleman you are to the core. Very much appreciated. So people, once again, always use the right tool for the job. If you're nervous, you're anxious, you're kind of panicky about the job, adjusting, you kind of don't know what's happening and you keep on adjusting, don't stop. Stop. Do stop. Do stop. And relax. And, always approach this kind of task in a relaxed state of mind. And last but not least, if the truss rod doesn't appear to function with ease in the way I've shown in my Zen videos, stop. take the guitar to a pro. That's where I would draw the limit. That's where I draw the line. You know. There were also questions about the differences between one-way and two-way truss rod. This is something I will address in a dedicated episode of the Zen series, hopefully sooner than later. So stay tuned on that. Let me see. There's some questions here. Or maybe not questions. Desafinado says, "Hi, learned a lot watching your videos. Thank you. Most welcome." Greg is saying, "No, I think you're right. Players should know how truss rod works, can be adjusted. It does not mean everyone will stop going to luthiers to adjust their instruments." Well, honestly, I think repair shops will have enough work, and I would say that we are a repair shop too, and I would feel really happy for my customers, for my any player who brings their guitars here, to teach them also a little bit about the basic steps, how to adjust the truss rod of a guitar, or similar steps. Maybe we'll touch this topic in a while again from kind of another perspective. Kind of remember there's such a question coming, but let's see. Maybe it's this one. I can't remember. Poo Ninja asked, "Why are fret and nut files so expensive?" If I understood correctly, Poo Ninja's point was that he was slightly upset about that. Either you have to pay high price for tools that you only will need very occasionally, or you alternatively you pay high price by taking the guitar to a pro. Well, first of all, I already reminded you guys that those of you who are interested and or willing to do such maintenance tasks to your guitars as thread dressing or filing a nut, cutting a nut, well, you're a very small minority of players. Keep that in mind. Absolutely nothing wrong with you wanting to learn this stuff. I fully endorse your hobby and your enthusiasm. But seriously, remember that 99.99% of the guitar playing folk, they're not interested in going there. And for a good reason, I think. I mean, thread dressing, cutting a nut, these are tasks that, if you don't know what you're doing, you will easily make more damage than benefit to the guitar. In other words, this is where the line goes, I feel. Changing strings, adjusting the truss rod, setting the intonation, adjusting string height, the pickup height, even cleaning the pots. I mean, that's all stuff that you can do without specialist tools and without specialist skills by following simple instructions from videos and so on. It's all stuff within reach for everyone, I feel. And the risk of damaging the guitar is rather small. You won't do like huge damage to the guitar by, with truss rod you can if you're absolutely just forcing your way through and don't listen to the instructions. So you can damage your guitar with truss rod adjustment. But again, let's say on average, I don't have any statistics for it, but I would say that 99% of the guitars, the truss rod works okay that are out there. I mean, yeah. So, and you can safely tweak it a bit to learn and to realize whether the adjustment works as it's supposed to work. And if it doesn't, take the guitar to a pro. Or if you're willing to start experimenting and pioneering, learning and doing all sorts of repair jobs for your guitar, then by all means, just realize that there's certain risks the more advanced you go, but go ahead if you feel that way. It's not a matter of life and death. It's just guitars. It's they're toys, anyways. You know, tools, toys, but not a matter of life and death. Yeah. Okay, Stephen asks, is it advisable to use a humidifier in your guitar case? What do you consider the proper level of humidity? My house runs about 50%. Well, if your house runs about 50%, you're safe without, you know, if it stays at 50%, you're safe without using ever any kind of humidifier. You're actually in a very optimal humidity levels there at about 50% relative humidity. Humidifiers are advisable to use, especially in case of acoustic guitars. Also with electric guitars, you can use them, but with acoustic guitars, there's more proven benefit of it, and it kind of works better that way, and you kind of might avoid bigger damage by using it in a very dry situation. Very dry meaning like when the relative humidity starts dropping a lot under 30%, that's when the alarm bells should go a bit up, and you could start using a humidifier in your guitar case. And then you need to keep the guitar in the guitar case and keep the guitar case closed, and it's still not a guarantee. Those humidifiers, the different kinds of sponges and things, they will get the relative humidity inside the case slightly higher than the surroundings, but not really. I mean, if you don't have really like airtight, controlled environment, you won't be able to, with the humidifiers, get up to, let's say, from 20% to 50%. It probably doesn't work. I haven't seen it work like that. But anyways, they make it the risks less risky, so that the tops wouldn't crack and things like that. Horrible things that can happen to acoustic guitars. Yeah. We have another question here. Cecil asks, Juha, why don't we see one-piece maple necks anymore, like on old Fenders that didn't have a separate piece of maple glued on for the fingerboard? Well, this is a type of neck that what should I say to that? Well, first of all, when you have a one, I mean, there are still one-piece neck guitars available. Especially some small builders have specialized in recreating these early Fender style necks for their guitars. So I mean, it is out there, but it plays a more like a minor role. And I would say that my hunch is that the reason is that things have just gotten better with inventions that came after that. Maybe that's, and also production techniques for factories. It's easier to for a factory to build a guitar another way when you don't do the skunk stripe construction on the back and a clean fit for that. And it also limits the use. You can only use a one-way truss rod, a traditional type of truss rod in such a neck. A more modern approach for a lot of builders is using double-way or two-way truss rods, and you can't do that. That's a type of truss rod that typically needs to be installed under a fretboard, separate fretboard. I don't have a clear answer actually to this question. If one of you guys has knowledge why we don't see them more anymore, I'm happy to hear your comments on that. Sorry I couldn't shed light to this topic very clearly. Steven says, I have all tools for a complete setup. The very reason I attempt doing it is you provide all the details I need to crack on. Okay, that's cool. And Steven continues, here in Florida, Florida's heat, I run the air conditioning 24/7. Glad you say the 50% is fine. Yeah, that's very, very good. That's very good. And if you can keep it even to that, like evenly at 50%, you're in a good place with the guitar. Okay, I have an interesting question from JC. Not going to that yet. Let me see if I can wrap my mind around it. Maybe today or maybe another episode. Let's bring the question up anyways. JC asks, what would you say is the hardest type of wood to work with in terms of being too tough or too delicate? Okay, so we'll get back to that later. Now we'll forge on. So where were we? We were like doing a standard setup for the guitar, which I feel is within reach for everyone, and the risk of damaging the guitar is rather small. But when we move to the territory of cutting a knot, dressing the frets, this is specialist grounds, okay? So if you want to learn, great. But obviously, when entering specialist grounds, you'll be needing specialist tools. And as always, good quality specialist tools are not cheap. It's very understandable. They're not tools needed in every household, so they're not made in such massive productions anywhere. So they're specialist tools. Like any specialist tools would be more valuable than the supermarket hammers and stuff that you can buy. And if you want to do a good job, you'll need good tools too. So it's normal. And if you see somewhere very cheap guitar repairs tools, alarm bells, good tools, they have a cost, so it's common sense stuff, I feel. So I hope this answers Punin's question adequately. All right, so we're moving on. Well, Tuomas Timonen sent me an email asking me this. So this is a different topic. So Tuomas asks, how frustrated are you, meaning me, how frustrated are you by the fact that while Gibson protects somewhat aggressively their old designs from the 50s from being replicated, from being copied by other makers, they simultaneously steal all innovations they can from small builders. So Tuomas refers that to certain events back in time. In 2009, after the Unicorn Video Diary was published, Tuomas recalls that Gibson was advertising soon after my Unicorn Video Diary was ready. Gibson started advertising a new Les Paul headstock joint with the catchphrase, "You could stand on it." An innovation by Gibson that disappeared soon after being introduced. But anyways, also at some point, Tuomas recalls that Gibson advertised how every Gibson guitar has dedicated photos of that specific guitar being made. And now the Gibson Garage offers a service where you can choose the wood, the pickups, the finish, kind of like a configurator thing. So, well, Tuomas is referring with his questions to the fact that on the Unicorn Video Diary back in 2008, I demonstrate the strength of our guitar neck construction by standing on a neck. And yeah, of course, the guitar creator application, our guitar configurator that we pioneered with long before most others. So Thomas is asking, how frustrated am I? Well, you know, honestly, I've never really bothered that stuff at all. We're just doing our own thing, and whenever someone is influenced by our doings, I always try looking at it positively, taking it more as a compliment. When a major manufacturer rips off, I can't even know for sure if we've been an influence to factually an influence to those Gibson innovations mentioned, but let's imagine it is true, and our little underground videos from that time did succeed in making such a difference, such an impact to a large company as Gibson. So, well, I'm happy for it. Seriously, we can toast for that. We can toast for that together, and among small builders, there is to a large extent, not always, not everybody knows each other, but there's some kind of mutual respect. Like, we're all the same tribe. It's not considered good form, not like not a cool thing to rip off from your colleague. A bit of solidarity among peers, if you will. But it's not easy though. There's so much makers in the world these days, and most of the times there's like nothing new under the sun, regardless of the fact that I might think so of my unique work. Most likely someone somewhere has already done it in a long time ago. Okay, there can be the rare occasion when you stumble upon something genuinely novel, untouched, but that is very, very rare. Like, let's take Spanish cedar and electric guitar bodies in next, for example. Spanish cedar. Well, I am often Ruokangas. We're often referred as the first one doing it, but I wasn't the first. I wasn't the first one. Juha Lottonen in Finland had made a guitar like that before me, and for a long time I thought he was the first one. But no, he was not the first one. Because at some point later down the road, I met a Dutch luthier named Anno Galama. Anno came to say hi at the Frankfurt Music Messe and congratulated me of succeeding in what he had not succeeded so well in. So back in the day, back in the 70s, he had made electric guitars out of Spanish cedar, and the players loved them until they found out that the guitars were not made of mahogany. It's like, Anno had tried for some years, but Spanish cedar, impossible to sell. And I can imagine that, in the 70s, when the baggage of the tradition and, the credibility of even, making guitars by hand, electric guitars by hand, back in the 70s, it was a rare phenomenon at the time that there would be like small builders, a luthier making electric guitars back in the 70s. There weren't so many around, and most often they would make replicas of the well-known guitars back then. And so did Anno. I mean, they were more or less replicas, copies of other guitars, as far as I can remember. But he used Spanish cedar, which he felt was impossible to sell. So yeah, I may have been the first luthier who succeeded in breaking through internationally, loudly endorsing the use of Spanish cedar in our guitars and kind of like breaking through that glass ceiling, breaking through to the other side. And so, we made it a thing that wasn't anymore impossible to sell, but it doesn't mean that I was the first one. And and many others have adapted the use of this great tonewood Spanish cedar since. Younger generation builders. And am I frustrated about it? No, I'm absolutely not frustrated. I'm honored. When this stuff happens, it's like, I've made a mark. I made a difference. I have contributed something, even if in a small way, to the sphere of the evolution of guitar, whatever that may be, or whatever that may mean. And it feels great. It feels great. Yeah. Earlier I mentioned how it's really difficult to avoid not stepping on some other builders' toes these days because there are so many builders. It's not easy to know, and it's just so true. I have my experiences, the other way around as well. I mean, think of my Captain Nemo guitar. Some of you know the guitar. You can put it to Google. If you don't know what it is, Ruokangas Captain Nemo. It's the instrument that introduced the first prototype of what was to become later the Valbucker, the tube-driven active pickup. And making this guitar, the Captain Nemo, designing the aesthetic features, it was completely an intuitive process for me. Like, some of you are familiar with the story. Starting from the question, what if the electric guitar was invented back in 1895? How would it function? How would it look like? That was the starting point. What if the electric guitar was invented back in 1895? And it was just a brainstorming, fun, childlike play, concept guitar idea, having fun with these elements, and the ideas to shape how the Captain Nemo came to look like. Even the fact that we invented the Valbucker during this process as well flowed from that question from 1895. What could an electric guitar invented back in that time, the Victorian age, what could it be like? So the ideas flow from that question. That violin or violinish top and back carve that kind of like extend over the side a little bit, paying homage to the tradition of bowed instruments. And what I felt was like an obvious nod, hats off to Spanish guitar, the classical guitar, the round shape of the pickup element in the middle, the sound hole of a Spanish guitar, our pickup element that then became the kind of identity of what the Valbucker pickup looks like. And when photos of that guitar started spreading on the internet after the Holy Grail Guitar Show 2014, I noticed that a colleague of mine, an elderly gentleman from the USA, Rick Turner, if you know the name. Younger players don't necessarily know the name. I knew the name, but but I wasn't very familiar with his work. Well, Rick Turner had commented somewhere, maybe it was in Facebook, maybe somewhere else, I can't remember that, that the Captain Nemo was copying his Model 1 guitar. Well, you can look these guitars up from search it from internet. the Rick Turner Model 1 and the Ruokangas Captain Nemo, and make up your own mind. Well, I had no idea. I'm not familiar with all other small builders' instrument. I had never seen the Model 1, and yet, yeah, there is an aesthetic similarity. They're not identical, far from it, but there is an aesthetic similarity to these guitars, especially that gravitates to that round shape in the middle. The round shape I thought I had ripped off from the Spanish guitar, the classical guitar, but since Rick felt I had been influenced heavily by the Model 1, what does that mean? Does that mean that his round shape in the middle of the guitar is the original guitar shape, the round shape, the first round shape in the middle of a guitar? No, it's not the first one, but it's that shape has been around for so many times and in so many amalgamations over the time. And in any case, I wish that I don't know how the situation is, but I wish Rick could take it as a compliment, even if I was unaware of it at the time. A lot of gray area to cover here, So I want to thank you, Tuomas, for your excellent question. Don't know if my long and winding answer has done any good though, but there is also another perspective to consider here, and we're kind of going back to the original question about Gibson, and if, how frustrated am I, or am I frustrated, or how do I feel about it? But putting emotions aside, I can't recall if Gibson rolled out a stronger headstock design after my Unicorn guitar was launched. I can't recall that. But let's say they did, and let's say it doesn't even matter, my Unicorn video diary and the fact that I had the strong or the kind of stronger headstock joint design to eliminate some of the kind of Achilles heel of Les Paul guitar in my design. That's irrelevant at this point. But let's say that for whatever reason, Gibson rolled out a stronger headstock design in the 2000s. But soon after, it disappeared. So why did this design feature disappear from their roster? If it was a stronger one, if it was a better one, if it was addressing one of the key design flaws of all time, of most Gibson guitars, why did it disappear? They've tried to fix it earlier. They did the volute to the back of the kind of like the bulky shape to the back of the neck back in the 70s to fix that, but it didn't stick either. I mean, they had it for a while and then they pulled it back and they went back to the original weaker one. So why didn't the improvements stick? I mean, if Gibson would have, been influenced by my headstock design and it would have stuck, I mean, they would have continued using it. How cool was that? I feel like, wow, that would be so cool. And I'm kind of disappointed that it didn't stick. But there's a perfectly rational explanation to why it didn't stick. It doesn't make maybe common sense at all, but it's a very typical situation. The reality is that the players, let's even not say players alone, because there's a lot of other kinds of buyers of Gibson guitars. A lot of other people buy Gibson guitars than just the players, because it's an icon. It's an icon. You can put it on the wall, regardless if you play guitar, because it's like, it represents rock and roll. It represents, and I can totally get it. I mean, it's really, I mean, it's you can see it as a work of art as well. Yeah, so the reality is that the buyers after Gibson guitars, they don't typically want any innovations from them. They don't want. They don't want any innovations from them. Changing any detail, any minor detail in the 1959 Gibson Les Paul design makes the new design different from the 1959 design. And even if it's an improvement, like in the case of a headstock that doesn't snap off so easily, it's different from the original design from 1959. And when it's different, it's not the original design. Remember, Gibson it's one of the strongest legacy brands in the world. In the guitar business, the music business. Gibson is a strong legacy brand. And it means also that Gibson is, in good and bad, I mean, they can make a lot of business out of that legacy, but at the same time, the fact that their legacy, their heritage is so strong, Gibson is a prisoner of their own past. Gibson is a prisoner of their own past. Any new improved design by them will be 99.9% certainty, short-lived, and viciously hated by the true Gibson legacy followers. I know it's not commonsensical. It isn't, but Gibson followers will hate it because it's not the original. It's changed from the original. There's something fishy about it. There's something suspicious about it. It's not the original. It can't have that sound, that legendary sound, whatever, I don't have that baggage. I can do things more flexibly, and people don't start hating me quite as easily if I decide to improve something. Okay, I'm not immune to the phenomenon though. Who knows? I might also be well on my way to becoming a prisoner of my own past. I have to give that. I have to give that some thought. Whether that's happening or not. I have to meditate on that a bit. Let's take a few comments. It's very soon time to call it a day. I'm really trying to keep it under 1 hour today. It's because of the European Championship of Soccer, which I want to see the game. That is starting there actually any minute now, I think. So, yeah. But let's see. What do we have here? Shaggy's Faction, nice to see you here. Great. Poo Ninja, I need to just break down and buy proper tools. They would last Juha 10 years. They would last me a lifetime. Buying tools that last a lifetime is an investment. It's a great thing to find tools that last a lifetime. I love such tools. And you should love them too. And you should be happily paying for such tools. Unfortunately, you might find that some of even the expensive tools that you buy don't maybe last a lifetime. Even for you. There are good tools. There are There are all kinds of tools. Yeah. Let's see if we ever get down that road. Start talking about luthier tools. I would have to find a good reason to why to address all that. It's a swamp. It's another kind of a swamp. Yeah. Okay, Stephen, what about roasted maple necks? Have you any info about that process? Well, I do, and there is a video or videos and articles and everything dedicated for this topic, roasted maple. Not with the name roasted maple. We are using the original name, thermally aged tonewood, which is the invention. It's actually a Finnish invention. Yes, it's the roasted maple, as more people know it these days. It is an invention originating from Finland, and we were one of the early pioneers of that. And we are using thermally aged tonewood a lot. And let's not dive into this topic any deeper than that. I'll just refer to my thermal aging videos. I mean, if you just look for thermally aged tonewood Ruokangas from YouTube or our website, there's an article written about it, and tons and tons and tons of information. Also explaining the differences of the various temperatures used for thermal aging, roasting, baking, however you want to call it, caramelized tonewood, some call it, or torrefied, or there's a lot of names for this nowadays. But anyways, I'm very familiar with the topic and not going deeper into that today. Stephen, I am waiting for a Rick Turner from Jerry's Lefty Guitars, 12 string. Happy for you. Tell my best regards to Jerry. And to Rick as well, if you talk to him. Cecil mentions Gibson's headstock angle is like a lute. Well, that 17 degree angle of the headstock, it's also one of the fundamental factors one of the many factors in that Gibson Les Paul feel and even the sound to an extent. So, but you can make a 17 degree angle headstock strong. Gibson has never they've tried to offer people, but people just haven't wanted their innovation like we talked about it. So, you know. And Cecil says those 70s Les Pauls take a lot of flack, but the volute and 3-piece maple necks then were made for a better, stronger neck than their vintage spec. That's correct. Yeah, it is correct. And I think at the time in the 70s when they introduced these the maple necks, and they really tried to address at the time. I mean, it's so obvious that they changed from mahogany to maple. They introduced a volute, so they did all they could to address the problems they had experienced with the Les Pauls breaking. Sometimes from the smallest hit, they would just snap broken. So they really tried, but it was not the original. People didn't want it. I'm happy that I don't have that baggage on my shoulders. There are many other examples of this. I've talked with, what was his name? I can't recall the name. An engineer from the research and development from Martin Guitars. He also was talking about the same thing about Martin, the people at the research and development of Martin Guitars shared the frustration of being a prisoner of their own past, meaning that Martin has had to reintroduce certain pre-war models of theirs faithful to the original specs, including not installing an adjustable truss rod to the guitar, because at the time such a thing didn't exist before the war in the 1930s. So, and they are having. I mean, they have to make those guitars because the demand is so high and people love them. People buy them, and then there's the same problems with these reissue pre-war guitars with that. Eventually, you will just. It's just inevitable. You will face a neck reset because there's no truss rod, and it's frustrating, obviously, for the engineers, for the designers developing guitars, and they know they could do it better, but people want it done the way it was done back in the day. So we live in a strange world, and people love traditions, and people love to kind of hang on to the past. So yeah, so that's what it is. Steven talks about the Rick Turner. Let's bring on some Rick Turner stuff here. This Rick Turner guitar is made from California redwood, and it's light, just over 7 pounds. It sounds really great. Probably going to be a killer guitar with a lot of resonance. Jerry's dealing with the neck and has asked Rick for input. Great. Really, genuinely happy for you. Go for it. Rick's guitars, they look amazing. I've never held one in my hands, I have to say. But they everything I hear and see about them is just great. Ninja says, I've tried hundreds of Gibsons, none ever felt right. Beauty's in the ear and hands of the beholder, I guess. Gibson has made great guitars, but they still make great guitars. There are really nice custom shop guitars by Fender that I've come across. And I think their, hunch with what they were doing back in the day, it's not a coincidence that the 1950s Les Pauls, especially the 1957, 58, 59, and 1960, that's the golden era, the most sought after Gibson guitars ever. It's not a coincidence that they are the most sought after. They're also great guitars on average. I have to say, I've tried plenty of this era Gibson guitars, and on average they've been great musical instruments. I have to say that. I have to give that to Gibson. I mean, it's not a coincidence that they, and funnily enough, at the time, like I think we've discussed in another episode earlier down the road, that Gibson made those amazing guitars towards the end of 1950s, but in that time, in that age, people didn't want them. They were just not trendy, and they were considered just old-fashioned and boring, and they didn't sell, so Gibson stopped making Les Pauls in 1960. They stopped. I mean, I don't know how many of you guys know that, but Gibson stopped making 1960 because it didn't sell. Gibson Les Paul didn't sell. And not until 1969 they continued, in the aftermath of starting to notice that the demand for beaten up old Les Pauls from the 1950s was up. Thanks to Eric Clapton picking one up and other players towards the end of 60s. So all of a sudden Gibson Les Paul was trendy. The rock players at its time picked up the Les Paul, and so it happened. But Gibson Les Paul was never a bestseller at its golden era when the best ones of them were made. It's so contradictory and so kind of it's truly a paradox, which our humankind is interesting. The game has started, already 2 goals. Talking about the European Championship. Oh, just kidding. Come on, Greg, you can't do that. I know that the game has started by now, but yeah. Poo Ninja, new technique, or did someone leave the kiln on too high? Referring probably to the roasted maple, to the high temperatures used in roasted maple, making roasted maple. Well, there is a history to it, and there is a clear misunderstanding, and it's explained on the article I have on my website. So I think you should go there and read it. Just put thermally aged stone wood to Google, and I bet you that my article might jump up first. Try. Greg B, I guess this is an opportunity to have a under your investigation part 3 in the future. Yes, it is. There must be new because there's still 1,000 questions unanswered by you. This is just an unending, you know. Bossy says, Ben from Crimson Guitars found the info about thermally aged stone wood very interesting. I bet. I haven't talked to Ben about this, but it would be sometimes it would be really interesting to pick Ben's brain also. Maybe I should ask him to be interviewed on my one of the episodes. Would that be fun? You guys follow Crimson Guitars YouTube channel? I don't follow it like actively, but sometimes I kind of have a glance, and he has very interesting stuff going on, very cool experimentation and stuff. So I'm curious to talk to Ben. Yeah. What is going on here? So much comments. Thank you. Thank you. All the nice comments to us. JC, who will win the championship? European the soccer tournament. Portugal? No? You tell me. What do you think? Maybe Portugal. I might hail for Portugal. Let's see. Spain. Anyways, there's so many. I can't address all of this, guys. It's just amazing and overwhelming. Nemo is asking great question. In your opinion, who makes best new guitars priced under 1,000 euros? This question will also be put to the long list of to be answered ones. So, you know. Cecil says, is roasted and torrefied the same thing? Yes, it is the same thing. Go watch your game, dude. I would not miss the World Series to take off. I will take off now. Yeah. This is the closing comment. Of folks with tattoos on their head, crimson is probably my favorite. I can attest to that. I agree to that. That's a good closing comment from you guys. Time to call it a day. Well, as usual, I couldn't answer, so much questions. I could answer only very few because my answers are so unbelievably long. I apologize to that. But, July is the holiday month in Finland, and that means radio silence from me for a little while. If you want to be notified when the next stream pops up, with more insider guitar secrets revealed that some other professionals might even not want to be revealed, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon too, or subscribe to my newsletter. You'll find the subscribe link in the description of this video, or at the footer on our website, roekangas.com, on every page. Emma and I were working on a couple of more Zen videos, but no promises of any specific dates at this point. Man, those videos are hard work to put together. Fun, but really hard work. Lots of editing and lots of thinking, so we would get all the information out for you, so so you can, really do the job with the instructions. Because I'm seeing so much videos that are kind of scratching the surface, but too vague, not giving a clear step-by-step instruction how to do, what to do, in what order should you do things, and why to do it in certain order, and so forth. So it's a lot of work, but we're having great fun. So what I do know is that next Wednesday, even though we'll take a bit of time out with the live streams, Emma and I, we will put out a very cool little improvisation video, a musical performance duet by Jussi Reijonen playing a Valbucker powered Duke with Vancil Cooper on drums. Looking forward to that one. By the way, if you happen to be a reader of the one and only Guitar Player magazine, look out for the July issue with Prince on cover. That magazine has a great review on the Valbucker Duke. It's the same guitar that Jussi plays on the video that will be out next week. So yeah, stay tuned on that one. Great, that's a wrap. If you know someone you feel would benefit from watching this video, please share to that person. Otherwise, keep it secret, keep it safe. And all right, thank you for your continued support. Good to be here among such fine guitar-loving people. Remember to take care of your loved ones. Be well, stay safe. And as always, peace, love, and good music.